lecturing you about how she's a victim of racism. Hillary Clinton, exact same thing. Goes to Wellesley, spends her entire life in the ruling class, and she's still whining about how she's discriminated against. Why are they doing that?
Yeah, and did you ever see? They'll have like pictures of side by side, but it'll be like pictures of like Jimmy Carter's house and Obama's house.
Exactly.
And it totally represents something about the like corroding of our soul.
In a white neighborhood, you should be required to live in the hood if you're Barack Obama. And
if you're using that card.
You use that card. The only reason you got elected was because of your race. You spent your entire 8 years inflaming race hate in our country, and then you go to Martha's Vineyard, the whitest zip code in the world? Not allowed.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that.
All right, so here's the thing. You know, there's been a lot of jaw-dropping moments on television, but this was something else. Tucker Carlson, yeah, he's no stranger to heated debates, but when his guests started unraveling the blatant hypocrisy of some elite figures, including former President Obama, well, it was like watching a fireworks show gone rogue. The contradiction was laid bare for everyone to see, accusing the Obamas of preaching about social struggles while living in absolute luxury. Identity politics? They called it a profitable game, and boy did they have receipts. Now, if all this sounds intriguing, make sure, just for me, you hit that subscribe button. It helps me reach my goal of 10,000 subscribers by March and keeps you in the loop for more eye-opening revelations. Seriously, don't miss out. Alright, so let's dive deeper into what happened during this electric conversation. When we talk about Barack Obama, we're talking about one of the most polarizing figures in recent American history.
I notice a theme here. There are a lot of extremely rich people who are deeply miserable and desperate to have you believe they're victims. What is that?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, LeBron James living in Bel Air, he's a victim. Meghan Markle went downgraded from billionaire to multimillionaire. She's a victim. They want you to know that they're all victims. It's because they're trying to distract us. The truth is that they view us as peasants. They're trying to make it seem like, hey, when the peasants turn against us because they're actually robbing all of them, we don't want them to look at us. We want to make them think that we're one of us. They're not one of us. They're nothing like us. They don't live like us. She has nothing that goes on in her life that is similar to the average American, yet she keeps trying to use her skin color and her complexion as a way to make people believe that she's suffering, and she's absolutely not suffering. And everyone should be aware that if you're watching this and you think that LeBron James and Meghan Markle and Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are oppressed, you are a fool. You have been fooled. They are doing just fine.
From his humble beginnings as a community organizer to becoming the first African-American president of the United States, his journey seemed like a classic rags to riches story. But the reality, some say, is far more complicated and, honestly, unsettling. You know, Barack Obama stepped into the political limelight with an estimated net worth of around $1.3 million, which, let's be fair, is not an unusual amount for a U.S. senator. But fast forward to today, and estimates suggest his net worth has skyrocketed to around $70 million. So, how did all this happen? His rise in wealth is frequently attributed to book deals and highly paid speaking engagements. But, I mean, is our curiosity truly satisfied with just that explanation? Some folks out there are questioning whether there are deeper, more clandestine forces at work. You see, Tucker Carlson's guest delved into the notion that the real trick behind Obama's wealth stems from leveraging identity politics. Like, to put it simply, identity politics has become a sort of golden ticket for many political figures. It's a game where only a few thrive financially, while others are manipulated by narratives of social justice and equality. And guess what? The Obamas, Clintons, and Bidens seem to be starring in this lucrative game show. Take the Obamas, for instance. During his presidency, Barack Obama advocated for the middle class and championed principles that resonated with ordinary Americans looking for hope and change.
Barack Obama's campaign in 2008, first of all, it was just leaving how you feel about the guy aside, it was an amazing campaign. It was unlike anything that had ever been run before.
It was genius.
Yes, it was totally brilliant. It was now, of course, it wasn't what they presented it as. It wasn't like a grassroots campaign. It was,
let's sort of like elect the black guy and get past the race stuff. I loved that.
Well, especially because that was his message.
That was his message.
And let's get past the race stuff.
I love that.
He goes, then I think essentially what happened, and it was around Obama's re-election campaign, this is where things really went off the rails in this country, was that he got in there and continued and expanded all the worst of the Bush policies.
Oh, of course.
And so they almost had nothing to run on. And so they decided to pivot to a culture war.
Yet, on the other side of the coin, they're living in lavish multi-million-dollar homes in places like Martha's Vineyard, where the price tag of a home can easily surpass $12 million. And that's not even mentioning the sprawling property in Hawaii. It's a bit hard to reconcile these luxurious lifestyles with the image of public service and struggle against inequalities, isn't it? And get this, Barack Obama is raking in about $400,000 per speaking engagement. Meanwhile, Michelle Obama can command up to $700,000. These aren't just numbers, they're staggering figures, reflecting just how profitable influence can be. To top it all off, the Obamas secured a $65 million book deal after leaving the White House. It's mind-blowing. I'm seriously trying to wrap my head around how telling your story can be so incredibly lucrative. And then there's this seamless flow of financial gain through charitable foundations. We sometimes wonder, how much of this money genuinely affects positive change versus padding their own profiles. That's a pretty big question mark hovering over the charitable works of these elite figures. Think about it. When you look at the Clintons, for example, their foundation has reportedly amassed over $230 million through various programs that, according to some critics, don't really solve issues but rather funnel endless contributions. I'm not saying these efforts are entirely without merit, but the big question is, where is the transparency? Now switch gears to the wider implications these revelations have on our perceptions of race and privilege in America. Tucker's guest didn't hold back on pointing out what some see as a glaring double standard. While advocating for policies that align with racial justice and equity, it's argued that they've simultaneously created a lifestyle that's almost insurmountable for the average American, positioning themselves in rarefied economic air while preaching about systemic barriers. It's this complex dance between public service and private gain that seems to fuel a growing sense of disillusionment. The guest suggested it's not just about financial success, but also about perpetuating a narrative that keeps the public engaged and divides opinion. For many people, this sort of exposure to the so-called hypocrisy might tilt their view on their revered figures, and that's intense, right? So, you guys, when we look at Obama's legacy through this lens, are we seeing purely a battle for social justice, or is it more about accumulating power and wealth while wielding the moral high ground? What we're confronted with is a picture that's equal parts inspiration and controversy. Listening to this kind of scrutiny, it might make you wonder whether the voices that have historically been seen as empowering are, in reality, capitalizing on social issues for personal gain. It's a discussion that forces us to revisit not just Obama's legacy, but also how we perceive leadership and integrity in politics. So guys, what do you think? Are we being too harsh on the former president and these elite figures? Or is it valid to question these financial patterns and motivations? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to see how you're all feeling about this.